Hey guys, welcome back to Caffeinated Comic Books. I am your host, the King of Caffeine, Monarch of the Mocha, Ruler of the Roast. You know what's going on. We're about to have a new comic book review. It is new comic book day, greatest day of the week. Aside from whatever day is your day off from work, that's usually pretty solid too. So, today we are getting into issue number 3 of Young Justice. This is Young Justice Wonder Comics, the new imprint under DC's DC Universe label, spearheaded by Brian Michael Bendis. Now, I've mentioned this before on the channel in multiple comic book reviews. I'm not the biggest Bendis fan in the world. His Superman is not for me. I only really enjoyed the early part of Ultimate Spider-Man back in his Marvel days. However, Young Justice has been off to a good start. The same can't be said of all the Wonder Comics line books. However, Young Justice so far is pretty solid, and that stays true with issue 3. And I'm honestly surprised, but I'm really happy with this because Young Justice, I'm a product of the late 80s, early 90s, and therefore the way the comic books were presented back then during those years is very much how I prefer my comic books to be. I prefer them to be flashy, I prefer them to be fanciful, I prefer them to be action-packed, fun, funny, dudes are ripped, girls are sexy, all the good stuff, right? You know, crazy stories. I don't need depressing shit in my comic books. All right, first and foremost. There's enough of that in the world. I don't need it in my damn comic books as well. So Tom King, looking at you, piss off. Excuse me, getting over a cold here. Something cool, I actually, the weekend before last, got to meet Brian Michael Bendis. And before you guys ask, no, I did not ask him why he ruined Superman or anything else like that. I was very respectful, even though I told him, hey, you know, some of your books aren't for me, but I've really enjoyed Young Justice so far. And I really appreciate, and I told him this directly, verbatim, I really appreciate how you're writing Bart Allen thus far, because he was one of my favorite characters on the Young Justice team back when I was younger. And, you know, he was one of my favorite characters just growing up in general. And he and I spoke for a few minutes, and he said, you know, I really appreciate that. And it took me a long time to kind of figure out what that character's voice would be in this day and age, in this era, because obviously we live in a much different time, even, you know, only 10, 15 years removed from when that character was really last prominent, and Young Justice was still a team. He said, I really knew that I was going to have to take extra care to make sure that that character, above almost all other characters in the book, was going to be true to the character's roots. And I thanked him. I said, you know, I really appreciate that. There are a lot of characters out there in comics that I don't think they sound like themselves. I don't think they sound like the characters historically do. And he said, you know, I can understand that. Thank you for your critique, and thank you for being happy with the character of Bart thus far. And so that was really cool. Super nice, down-to-earth guy. Like I said, you know, a lot of his stuff isn't for me. I know a lot of diehard Superman fans that are not fans of his Superman run, and that's fair, that's fine. I'm only just now really getting into Superman books and starting to dive deeper into some of his better stories as a character, and it's making me appreciate the character a lot more than I did beforehand. And I couldn't really begin to tell you why I decided to do that. I've never been the biggest Supes fan, but it's just something I decided to do, and I'm really enjoying going through some of his better stories. But with that out of the way, oh, and lastly, I did get a couple of books signed, so I was able to get this variant cover of Young Justice #1 signed. This was my favorite of all the covers for Young Justice #1. The, you know, the dude looking back, and his girlfriend, who's kind of smoking, she's looking back at Connor Kent. Connor's looking all badass there. Pretty awesome. And then, even though I did just say that his Superman run isn't for me, I did get Man of Steel issue #1 signed, just because I wanted to have them. You know, it was cool getting to meet him. Again, really down to earth, really cool guy. But now let's get into what you're actually here for. About 5 minutes in, review for Young Justice issue 3. This is a really cool cover. The last cover was kind of the Powerpuff Girls, girl power cover, and it had the 3 of the female Young Justice members on the cover. And this time we got the boys. It's a boys club. We got Bart, got Connor, and Tim. And this issue, as the converse of the last issue number 2, which focused almost entirely on the female cast, this one focuses almost entirely on the male cast, and specifically with regards to Connor and a bit less Bart. So this actually picks up right after the end of issue 1, where Bart runs into Connor. So Bart got transported to Gem World, and he runs into Connor Kent, and he freaks out. He's like, dude, you got facial hair. Again, Bendis hasn't always been for me, but I'm really appreciating how he's writing Bart. That's incredibly important. If he continues to write Bart with the voice that he has right now throughout this run on the book, I will be very pleased with the book overall. And Connor is working out pretty well so far too. But they're caught up, and they're I want to say catching up, but there's actually fairly little dialogue here, which is fine. It's more of just the visual appreciation, the emotional aspect of, hey, these two are kind of best buds, and they're finally seeing each other again after God knows how long. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm getting over a cold. So yeah, they're going back and forth like, hey, how did you get here? And where is here? Goes like that, back and forth. But then reunions cut short by some guards from Gem World, from the House of Opal, I think is what it was. So each of these, in Gem World, there are multiple houses. Think of it, I think he's trying to model it a little like Game of Thrones here. So you got, the different houses there, and they're doing the same here, except each house is named after, instead of a different animal, it's named after, or rather, its symbol, different animal. It's named after a different type of gem, different type of stone. House Opal is, I guess, kind of one of the bad guys. And some of their knights or guards, sentries, however you want to call them, they show up, kind of crash the reunion, and they're talking about, wanting to invade Earth and take out Superman for apparently causing problems for them in their world. That hasn't quite been touched on or explained. It's just been mentioned that, hey, all of the crises that have happened in the normal DC universe, which have been averted by Superman, they've essentially had some sort of a negative effect. There's some sort of causation there that has negatively affected Gem World, and we don't know what that is yet. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but apparently they're mad about it. I guess I kind of would be too. But Bart's like, oh, so you got a problem with Superman, huh? Well, guess what? We kind of got a bit of a Superman here. And he just kind of runs his mouth a little bit. And Connor's like, dude, chill out. They go back and forth a little. But then Connor just like, I'm going to give up here. He just gets down on his knees, hands behind his head. Bart gets zapped and knocked out. And then we go to a flashback here. Now, this right here takes place at a unspecified time, but obviously this is prior to Connor's, I don't want to say imprisonment in Gem World, because he does mention earlier on in his dialogue with Bart that he really likes it in Gem World. So he's fighting off this monster, and some Star Labs / some government agents here show up and are none too happy with whatever's going on. So Connor's like, well, what are you guys doing here, and who are you? And this woman here, she keeps avoiding the question. She doesn't want to give him a straight answer. She's like, no, let's talk inside. Let's go inside. We'll talk about this elsewhere. And he's like, hey, well, what's going on? So he just takes off. And then we flash over to his school, Smallville. God, that was a good series. If you guys have watched Smallville, let me know down in the comments if you like that show. That show is freaking fantastic. Gosh, now I kind of want to rewatch all 10 seasons. That's going to take quite a chunk of my time up. But there's this theme of rules in this book, and rules that are either meant to be broken or not. And the teacher in Connor's classroom is talking about rules, why they're there, who makes the rules, and how things play out in society based on who makes the rules. And he asks her, well, what if you made the rules? Well, rules would be much different. Now, this was an opportunity here for some SJW nonsense, which I was very grateful did not end up playing a part. Essentially, the teacher says, well, things would be a lot different. I would make sure there was a lot less distraction, and teachers would be paid more. And I'm okay with that. Teachers are underpaid, and so if they're going to talk about anything, I'm okay with that being it. And then Connor's like, hey, you know what? You're onto something here with rules. I'm going to break the rules. See you, bye. And so he takes off, and the teacher's like, wait, are you really leaving right now? He's like, yeah, I'm going to throw on my cool leather jacket, throw on my shades, and peace out. I'm out skis. Then he goes back. I can't show everything. He goes back to the kind of site where that monster that he took down is at, and where Star Labs and these government employees had kind of set up shop. And he's like, so it dawned on me, you guys are probably up to no good, or you're hiding something. So I kind of want to know what it is. And they're like, you're not authorized to be here. There are rules and you got to follow them. You see, you chose the wrong day to talk to me about rules, because I'm deciding that not all rules are for me right now. And so he breaks through this big steel door, this big metal door. And inside, oh gosh, I'm really looking forward to getting the Jim Lee covers for Detective Comics 1000. That aside, so this is how he gets transported to Gem World, apparently. Was inside that area that he broke into was something from Gem World. We don't know what this is. It just looks like a big giant stone. Kind of reminds me of the Master Emerald in Sonic, if you guys understand that reference. But yeah, he gets transported to Gem World. I'll skip a couple pages here. Apparently he has a wife in Gem World, but the rest of it was kind of annoying, but not terrible. It's basically the rest of the Young Justice team. So Tim, Teen Lantern, even though she's apparently only 9 years old, I don't think that quite qualifies as being a teenager. Last I checked, you had to be 13 for that. Jenny Hex, and I forget who else. Cassie, Wonder Girl. They're all trapped. They're each in these like little pits, I guess, where they just have a very small window that they can look up out of. It looks kind of like a manhole, like a sewer drain type of a thing. And it looks like it's a very cramped place, and they're each in their own little hole. And it looks like it's not fun. They're kind of bickering about, how they got there, how they're going to get out, that type of thing. So curious to know what's going to happen in the next issue, especially with regards to Connor and Bart. So far, they're the characters I'm most invested in. That might have something to do with the fact that they're the characters that have been gone since the New 52 era began and up through Rebirth until now. So yeah, let me know, guys, if you picked up this issue. If you plan on picking up this issue, let me know down in the comments if you like the video. You know the deal. Like, subscribe if you're not subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and I will see you in the next one.